In this update, we've got all kinds of weather from record warmth to record lows, a major snowstorm, even blizzard-like conditions with severe weather and even a hurricane all in the next 7 days. So we'll break things down for you in this update. So let's take a look at the overall satellite picture. This morning, we can actually see this very strong cold front that impacted a good chunk of the central and eastern two-thirds. That's actually pushed all the way down into just the Bahamas this morning. Back behind it, it's just been crystal clear skies. But further north, they've still been getting some sporadic snow showers up here into the upper Great Lakes. But yeah, further to the south, we're going to be highlighting what is now Tropical Storm Roselyn. That is going to be our hurricane that's going to be forming over the next couple of days and eventually make landfall into portions of Mexico, as well as we have another upper level low disturbance off the coast of California. And then the rains finally come back for the Pacific Northwest. So let's take a look at Roselyn. So now it is named a tropical storm, about a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm. It is moving westbound about 6 miles an hour. All indications are this is expected to rapidly intensify into a hurricane, and if not a formidable hurricane, close to a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane, all in the next 72 hours, as this will make landfall sometime on Sunday, probably Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon into Mexico. And this will be downgraded as a tropical storm, but it'll actually feed some of its moisture back into Texas and give them some much needed and welcome rains. But it's all about the heat out west, where they've been really warm the last couple of days, if not record warmths they've seen unfolding across a good chunk of the west yesterday. Some of these high temperatures were well into the 90-degree range, and it was just completely the opposite with widespread record colds this morning for a good chunk of the southeast, even into Florida. So we had many record, or if not near record low temperatures for a good chunk of the southeast, as well as into Florida. And these are your actual temperatures this morning. How often do you see Florida Panhandle into freezing temperatures for your October 20th? So that's some cold stuff. Many record lows. Birmingham, Alabama broke a record low, and not too often that you actually see the Florida being colder than Caribou, Maine, folks. That is some unique stuff. But the flip is on. This is transition day, and what's going to be unfolding is this southwest wind. So as the winds turn around, you can actually see them coming off, spreading all that warmth back into portions of the central areas, as well as all the areas into the central and two-thirds of the U.S. by today, tomorrow, but especially into Saturday. Yet we have another trough that's going to be coming in. That's going to bring the rains back for the Pacific Northwest and the heavier snows and some of the higher elevations. There's the coastal low off the coast of California. And then we have yet another coastal low off the southeast coast. This is going to be traversing along the east coast as well and spreading some heavier rains into portions along the coastal regions into the northeast. So there's a lot of weather going on, guys, and we're going to break everything down for you. So as we get into Saturday, there's that trough. As the trough moves in, it finally brings the unsettled weather conditions after the 20th. We've been talking about this really for about the last 3 weeks. So the rains really start to come back in a big way, and a good chunk of the Pacific Northwest into Washington and Oregon, as well as Northern California. Those rains will spread into Idaho as well as Montana. And then as the cold air continue to seep southward, it'll mix in with that kind of a wet, heavy snow, and it'll transition to all snow in a good chunk of Idaho as well as Montana, as a 986 millibar low pressure center forms. And there's Roselyn off into the eastern Pacific, and there's our coastal low developing off the southeast coast. So as we get into late Sunday, things do start to get interesting, because that's when a lot of the dynamics start to come together. There's the surface low off the coast of California. We've got the 500 millibar jet stream screaming across at 105-mile-per-hour jet streak. That's some pretty intense stuff, and it tries to go negatively tilted As we go into Sunday night into the north of there, that is your 850 millibar low pressure center. And then heavier snows will be flying just to the northwest of here and a good chunk of Montana going into portions of the Dakotas as we head into Sunday night time frame. And at some of the lower levels, this is about 5,000 feet. Unfortunately, you've got a lot of shear. These winds are going to be changing directions. That spells trouble, guys, with some severe weather. And yes, unfortunately, even portions of these could include tornadoes by then into portions of Missouri, heading into portions of Iowa, going into portions of Minnesota here as we get into your Sunday night time frame. And there's the 850 millibar low pressure center just to the northwest of there, and to the northwest of there, that is the cold side. That's where you're going to get all the heavier snows, if not some blizzard-like snow conditions with these tight isobars really tighten it up. So it's going to be some nasty stuff, definitely some heavy snowfall rates of anywhere up to 2 inches per hour is definitely not out of the question into portions of eastern Montana, heading into portions of western the Dakotas as we head into Sunday night. And there is our hurricane that's going to be making landfall as we get into the day on Sunday. So we got a lot of water vapor going to be intruding in this setup as well. So you got a lot of aspects. You got a lot of shearing. Wind's going to be changing direction. That's why we're going to have some of the severe weather and unfortunately some of the tornadoes. And it's going to be pulling in a lot of water vapor with that southwest wind. So as this hurricane makes landfall, it'll actually help feed this system along with this upper level low, which is 985 millibar low pressure. That is a pretty formidable storm. So it's got to be a lot to contend with, and some pretty deep, severe stuff as we head into Sunday night time frame. And it's all culprit because we're going to be warming up in a big way. It's a drastic difference of what you're experiencing right now by the time we get into your Sunday night, because as we do, man, those temperatures are going to be well above average in this central part of the US, while it's the complete opposite of what you're experiencing now. So by the time we get into Sunday night, that's some chilly stuff, folks. And as that clash in temperatures with the temperature gradients, that's the part that spells trouble. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center, even a day 4 risk, has already highlighted a slight risk for severe storms right in this sector here into portions of Kansas, Missouri, heading into Nebraska, Iowa, going into portions of Minnesota. Obviously, I think this will be expanded, and I think this will actually increase in intensity, going to at least an enhanced risk as we get closer into Sunday night time frame. Because it's going to be a formidable low pressure center. We're talking a 985, 986 low pressure center with all the heavier rains and winds to the southeast of there and to the northwest of the low pressure center. That's where the heavier snow will fly, and these indicate about 2 inch per hour snowfall rates in the portions of Montana back into the Dakotas. So this is going to be a pretty formidable snow event, if not a major snowstorm. And some of this could be looking like blizzard-like conditions. Even our first blizzard of the season is definitely looks like to be on the table as we get into your Sunday night time frame. So as we go into Monday, so this will continue to deepen. It'll shift off into portions of northern Minnesota, eventually heading into Canada. And then the snow will travel with it as we get into the central part of the Dakotas. And then the snow will shift up into Canada. And then we'll have the tail end of it, right? So we'll have the remnants of Roselyn forming on the south side, along with this low pressure center. As the tail forms, I'm expecting showers and thunderstorms to break out. This stuff will probably not be severe into portions of Oklahoma and Texas, but some much needed rain entering the picture, especially into North Texas, and then shifting off into East Texas and eventually heading into Arkansas as we get into the overnight hours on your Monday time frame. There's the low pressure center, that coastal low that's going to be impacting portions along the coast with some heavier rains into the northeast. And then yet we'll have another system that's going to be diving on the backside into the Pacific Northwest, reinforcing the chillier air, the chillier rains along the coastal regions, and then reinforcing the snow is going to be moving back into Montana by then. So here's the breakdown. So you got the heavier rains moving back into portions of North Texas and East Texas. This will be in the day on Monday, more likely later in the day on Monday into the overnight hours, into portions of Oklahoma, as well as portions of Arkansas. And then to the north, we've got those high wind gusts. So with that low pressure center, as the snow falls, complements of the higher winds, yes, we could be looking at blizzard-like conditions. And this portion right here, up here into portions of Montana, as well as the Dakotas, with all that heavier rains, and most of this will be in the form of snow flying by the time we get into your Sunday and your Monday time frame. So as we transition into Wednesday, this low pressure center will be moving out of Texas. It'll be racing across into kind of a squall line by then. By the time we get into Wednesday, that'll be setting up over portions of Michigan, into portions of Illinois, Ohio, back into Kentucky, as well as Tennessee. This will feed into portions of the southeast as we move into the deeper into the afternoon time frame. And then there's that other system that's going to be coming in, reinforcing the rains back into Seattle, into Portland and Northern California. It'll transition to all snow into higher elevations. And then another low pressure center forms off this setup, off this another trough, that'll reinforce the snows back into Montana, because we have another deepening trough that's going to be entering the picture by then. This won't be until next Thursday, but it's just a reinforcing shot of colder air. That's going to be another area of instability that's going to be moving back into the northwest, and then really tightening up, bringing the heavier snows into the Rocky Mountains by then, and then bringing probably more severe weather across the northern and central plains, and then more rain going to be moving back on the south side, back into Texas and Oklahoma by the time we get into next Friday. So here's the setup on the surface map underneath that. This low pressure center won't be as intense as the first one you're going to be dealing with, but the second one will just reinforce those heavier snows back into Montana, into Idaho, back into Wyoming, as well as into portions of the Rockies here, with more snow flying into portions of Canada, as well as this system will move across into the northeast by then, with heavier snows lifting into Quebec. So on the wind aspect, here's the wind. So there's Roselyn down here. We're looking at a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane making landfall sometime on late Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon in Mexico. This will spread into the heavier rains into Texas, but where this surface low moves in, that's where we're going to be dealing with all the higher winds. And this is the bullseye where I think we're going to be looking at blizzard-like conditions into portions of Montana as well as the Dakotas, but definitely heavier winds right around that surface low and all that lift where it goes negative tilt, especially into portions of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, back into Minnesota, even portions of Wisconsin could be seeing some of those higher wind gusts. And there's the heavier snow, guys. There's a lot of snow coming with this system, with successful troughs going to be coming in over the Pacific Northwest. This is literally just over the next 7 days. So most of this snow starts on Saturday, and then we'll have reinforcing shots all week long, with heavier snows, and some of these can accumulate easily a foot to 2 feet of snow, and even higher than that in some of the higher elevations in Idaho into Montana. And there's the blizzard-like setup over portions of Montana as well as the Dakotas. And then that second system will eventually feed into the Rockies with heavier snows as well. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.